Yeah. Welcome from the Easter break. I know you've you've actually gotten time to rest more. Uh, yeah, we thank God. I think Mr. Kwabinatu is in now. Okay. Yeah. So let me start.
No break. In this country, nothing like Easter break or anything. So it's
Oh wow.
even this is when you even do overtime because some people will not show up. So it's even stressful when
Oh, that's so.
no break. No break. I just got back from work about 3 hours ago.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, maybe. Okay. I'm going to start a class. Um, we were looking at hardware and then device drivers. So it is always important to understand the concept of software and then the device drivers. Because we are dealing with devices. So what is it about? Say device drivers is a program without a user interface. So meaning that the user doesn't have the chance to interact with the software. So that's why it's saying that without a user interface. For most of the applications that we use are having graphical user interface where you have controls, you have buttons that you interact with the interface. So what is the device driver? It's used to manage hardware attached to a computer. And when we install the device driver, we actually want to introduce the software to the operating system. But we understand that in the operating system managing the computer. So why not install the device so that there will be a direct communication with the operating system? You have to bear in mind that the operating system was designed for specific features and functionalities. So it means that anytime you want to integrate other devices, then you must do installation of the device drivers. So it also, the primary objective is to allow computers and network hardware component to interface and interact with specific devices. So anytime you use switch, you use router, you use modem, you use printers, you use any other peripheral devices, then you have to know that there's going to be communication between the devices. So a printer will have to go with 8 device driver. Keyboard will have to do that with 8 device driver. So that is why hackers who are programmers, or let's say programmers who are also hackers, can actually capitalize on the device driver, the code that is being designed to run the devices. You can capitalize on that and hack the system. So we have to understand that the device driver is just a software instruction. So we can penetrate, we can use backdoor to attack the main system. So these are also the disadvantages of using the device driver. Because if I design a device, for example, a printer from a Brainstorm company, and I design the source code or the software, it means that I can embed malicious program in the device driver so that the moment you connect to your system, you connect to your server, the main server that manages resources. I'll be able to hack your server. So these are some of the disadvantages of or the tricks that hackers can use. Okay. How device drivers function. So one, device drivers operate inside the OS kernel layer. So we have a component that is very tiny, very small inside the operating system that take hold of the key component of managing resources. Kernel can be the main brain of the operating system. So without the kernel layer, where that is the core instruction of the operating system. So that's why I'm saying that device drivers operate inside the OS kernel layer. So when you install the device driver, it goes to the operating system and there's a merge. There's a merge between the operating system and the device driver. Second, they work in a highly privileged environment because they need low-level access to hardware operation to function. So it means that when you install the operating system, then because the device will have to get what we call priority. So the priority, you can set the priority. I think another time I used Task Manager, how to set priority for application running on your system so that the application can get more resources to work on. So you're saying that when you install the device driver, because it's going to operate a device like the printer, it will need highly privileged environment. If not, it's not going to function. That is why the printer, for example, is delicate. Just a very simple installation of even other software. It can create problem in the printer. It will even stop working. The third one, they enable the computer's operating system to interface with the hardware for which they were developed. So that is the device will be able to interface with the operating system. So there's a communication between the device driver and the operating system. And then the fourth one, and through a computer bus that links the device to the computer, the drivers and the device communicate. How does a device communicate with the operating system? Without a bus, when we say bus, on the motherboard, there's a small lines that transmit data from one component to the other. That is what we call the bus. So if I connect the printer to a system unit, I have to connect USB printer cable. When I connect the USB printer cable, inside the USB, there is a bus. That's why we say USB, Universal Serial Bus. The bus simply means line that or container that carries signals, container that carries data. Device drivers must receive advice from the operating system to access and execute device instructions. Yeah. So when you install the device driver, it's on your system, but there should be a whole control of the operating system to advise the device driver that, okay, there is an instruction for you to print a soft copy. There is an instruction for you to close the printer tab. So whatever command I issue to the device driver, is the work of the operating system to take control. Then the fifth one say, after completing the job, they transmit the hardware device output and message to the operating system. So it means that when you issue a command or when you are dealing with any device, there is an instruction. So the instruction, let's say, to print out a soft copy. So it goes through processes and before the final output is displayed. And that output is made available to the operating system. So you will not print the output or the soft copy through the device driver, but through the operating system, because the device driver is maybe, let's say, under the operating system. So when you look at the entire interface, what you see is the operating system. You don't see the device driver because that is the back. It's at the back of the operating system. And then the sixth one, devices such as modems. Modem is what we use to access the internet. Router help us to establish a network, and it can also allow you to connect to the modem so that all the computers can access the internet. Speakers. So when you connect a speaker, it's not the onboard one. The onboard comes with the operating system, but the external speakers, when you connect, there's integration of the device with each device driver. Keyboard too. Printers, they all need device drivers to operate. Sometimes when you connect your keyboard, you buy a new keyboard and connect to the system unit, it begins to work. You realize that you didn't install device driver, but still the keyboard is working with the operating system. Why? Because we are saying universal serial bus, which automatically load, because most of the modern operating system you have now has all the USB device drivers. So the moment you connect, it begins to work with the device. It's only printed that when you buy, you will have to get a device driver. Most of the time, you have it on CD. You can also go to the websites of various manufacturers to get or to download the device driver. Understanding device driver development. When, as a developer, if you want to design device driver, then you must know certain rules that you have to follow. So it's saying that device drivers enable peripheral devices, such as printers or keyboard, to interact with the computer. The following outlines the steps developers or programmers can take while developing device drivers for operating systems, such as Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. So when you come to programming, you can see the various disciplines that you can consider. Device driver programmer. So that also comes with 8 integrated development environment, the features available for you to write device driver. So what are the steps that most of the time you have to understand? One, you have to know the equipment. That is what I said. If you are using a printer, you want to write device driver for printer, then you must understand the work of the printer. Second, you write the driver code. So that means that you've learned the programming concept, then you apply in writing the code. And then the third, you initialize the hardware. So you have to switch on the printer. And then like you are testing the printer and the code, whether it works together. That is why you have to initialize the printer by switching on. Control the hardware. So it means that now your code will now control the hardware. So you have to get full control to manipulate the features of the printer. Or I'm using printer as an example because we have other devices. I'm using printer as an example. And then the fifth one, begin data communication with the hardware. So this is where you implement strategy to ensure that there's a communication between your code and the hardware. And then it says control data communication. So you must understand the flow of data from the printer to the device driver to the operating system. That should be the flow chart. And then last, test the driver and debug it. When you say test your application, meaning that you are testing for user acceptance. When user begins to use your device driver, how are they going to feel? Are they going to run into problem? Are they going to have any problem with the device? Are they going to be crash? Debug it. You have to identify the errors and then you fix. So debugging means identifying errors and fixing. 9 types of device drivers. You have 9 types. 1, the kernel device drivers. This is a driver that take hold of or get merged with the operating system. So when you say kernel, kernel is the core instruction of the operating system. So when you install kernel device driver, it goes to the operating system kernel. Then the second one, user mode device drivers. This is where the user can actually have certain features to control the device, like the printer. When you install the device driver, you have other features that you can actually control the printer yourself. So it's more like graphical user interface where you can go and set the printer's properties, like printing the portrait, the landscape, the type of printing you want to print out. We have the type A4, A3, A5, those types. So you have the chance, the user has the chance to actually manipulate those features. And the third one, the character drivers. So these are drivers actually for character manipulation. Okay, we have the block drivers. Also, it's just like the character, but in a block form. And then we have the fifth one, the OEM, original equipment manufacturer drivers. This one is actually for operating systems that most of the time they are for virtual and also allows virtual operation of certain softwares. Okay, but you see, we have the number 6. Number 6, the virtual device drivers. I have installed VMware. VMware, when you install it, or we have VirtualBox. When you install that device driver, when you install the VMware on your system, I think the other time I showed how the VMware is used. I use it for Linux programming. So when you have the virtual machine installed on your system, it comes with the device drivers. Then the next one is the BIOS. I think I've talked about the BIOS, which is a very important device driver. BIOS means basic input output system, mostly for keyboard, mouse, monitors. So when you install the BIOS, which is device driver that manages common devices. When I say common devices, they are the keyboard, mouse, monitors, common devices. And that is the input and output devices. And this is part of we call it startup OS, startup operating system. The moment you switch on the computer, there is what we call booting. So the booting goes through processes. The booting goes through processes. So it begins by initializing all the input and output devices to test whether they are actually functioning well. Before it even allows the various device drivers from the various devices to be uploaded onto the operating system. So the initial stage, which we call the startup OS, is for initializing all the input and output system, and that is done by the BIOS. We also have the motherboard drivers. You see, sometimes you can install your system when you go to device drivers. Let me show you the device drivers. So let's go to device drivers. I have it here. So if you want to know whether certain hardware, certain devices have not been installed, when you come to device driver, you can see unknown device. So there is a particular device that has not been installed. You can see it here. So when you run device driver scan, it's going to automatically pick all those devices that is not they have not been installed on the system. So mostly those devices have their device drivers on the motherboard. All these are devices installed. So you can see, let's go to monitor. And then you can see this, you see update driver. So when I say go to properties, I say driver, you can see that there's a driver details here. When you click on it, you can see where the device driver is located. When you go to Windows, System 32, drivers, monitor, you can see monitor.sys, which is the system, which is the device driver. So if you go to the device driver directory and you go and delete this file, the monitor will not work. So if I want to hack your system right now, when I penetrate your system, I'll go to this and search for this one and delete. You'll be there in your system, your monitor will go off. Then I'll begin to hack, transfer files. By the time you realize I'm done with the hacking. So these are files that you have on your system that must be protected. So every device, let's go to the keyboard. So right click and go to properties. Go to driver details. You can see all the device drivers installed for keyboard. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. These are device drivers, which automatically pick every keyboard as you connect. You can see 4. So if the first one doesn't pick, the second one will pick, or the third one will pick, or fourth one will pick. So we have 4 categories of device drivers, just to make sure it's able to pick every keyboard you connect to this system. Now, if let's say you have problem with your device, if it is printer, whatever, what you have to do is to go to update driver. you can see how do you want to search for drivers. So meaning that you can first do uninstall device. When you uninstall device, you go to update driver and then search automatically for drivers. So when you click on this one, so it begins to search. So you have the information here saying that Windows has determined that the best driver for this device is already installed. So I already have the device driver on this machine. So if not, you're going to search for these device drivers online and then install your keyboard for you. If you don't want to allow users or you don't want anybody to use your laptop for transferring files from USB or pen drive, we have this here universal serial bus controllers. You disable this one, you can see, go to properties. Okay, let's say, let me expand it. Expand this one. You have various USB. So you can see USB here. Right click, you can disable device. Disabling this device will cause it to stop functioning. You really want to disable it? Yes. So it means that when you connect USB device to this machine, it won't work. It won't work at all. So you have to come here. So as an administrator, you don't want people to use USB in order to enable transferring of viruses from the pen drive to the machine or to the client system. You disable the USB so that when they slot the USB, it won't work. So you see, my keyboard is not, sorry, my mouse is not working. I'm using mouse, it's not working. So I have to use the touchpad. You see, I have not disabled the touchpad. If I disable the touchpad too, then I have to find a way to enable it. So let me enable it. So if you enable it, that means that you can now work with your USB. So you see, I can move the mouse. So I can move the mouse. So it is important to always try and ensure that the motherboard driver that after, let's say, you've gone through all the device drivers and you realize that there's a problem with some of the device drivers. Because motherboard is actually the main board which accommodates most of the devices. So you have to install motherboard drivers. But I would prefer you, if you don't have any understanding about how to get the device drivers, just go to online, just type device driver scan software. You get one to be able to scan all the devices you have on the system that have not been installed. And then with appropriate control, you'll be able to install the device drivers. Then the last one is the open source drivers. Open source drivers where you can, let's say you have digital camera. So you want to integrate digital camera into your application. You can go online and then you get other open source developed by individuals and then companies. Then you can integrate and manipulate to suit what you want to do. Most of the time when we are writing software for project work, student project work, and then the student want to integrate any device like the digital camera or biometric device you have to install the biometric device, and then you go online, go and look for open source drivers. That one will allow you to manipulate the code to suit what you want to do. So these are the device drivers that we have. Okay. Applications of device drivers. So we have device drivers for accessing storage systems. Yeah, so hard disks, for instance, USB, other memory card, you need to use device drivers to be able to access. Second, device drivers for input and output devices like the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor. Device drivers for digital cameras. Then we have drivers for mobile operating system like Android. So Android has 8 device drivers. So you can download sometimes when it's outdated. Certain application will not be able to be compatible with what you have, Android you have. So you have to upgrade the device driver to be able to install the software. So when your device driver version is low, then you have to upgrade to a higher version. Sometimes your machine cannot even pick because it has a low model, so it won't pick. Then the final one, which is the device drivers for superior video performance. And you know, we have always I explain this using as a scenario. When you want to play FIFA games, you have the current one. If you want to play FIFA game, then it means that you have to upgrade your VGA memory. If you don't upgrade your VGA, it's not going to work with the video. You cannot watch or you cannot play a game with higher video graphics. It's not possible. Now, how do we access the device drivers we have on our operating system as IT personnel, having understanding about device driver? So we have a very simple method to do that. Driver query, which is the command. Driver query is the command. So we go to PowerShell. PowerShell is almost the same as the command prompt, PowerShell. So you type PowerShell, you go to run as administrator. So when you come here, you can see that this is a command interface. So you have to type driver query as I showed you, driver query, enter. So when you enter, you see, so this one is going to, you can even try it yourself to just know the device drivers work running on your system. So I have all these device drivers running on my system. You can see the model name, you can see the display name, you can see the driver type. So mostly they are the kernel. And then the link date. So you can see the model I have here, the first one, and then the display name. Let's move on to there's one particular. You can see CD-ROM drive. So when you install CD-ROM drive, this is the driver, CD-ROM driver. It's part of the kernel. Okay, so let's see. All these are device drivers for specific purpose. So you can see monitor. Monitor has Microsoft Monitor class here. We have the modems. Yeah, so they all have device drivers for